Good afternoon, collectors, and welcome to episode 2 of Trading Card Therapy. I'm your host, the Doctor, Leighton Sheldon, owner and proprietor of Just Collect and Vintage Breaks. Thanks for joining us today. So there's absolutely a ton going on in the hobby, even just since the 7 days of our very first episode of Trading Card Therapy last week. We're going to do our best to cover all of those topics and more during today's episode. Before I do that, I wanted to take a moment because I got a few emails in regards to what card shows did I frequent or did I attend growing up before Just Collect became what it is today, and same thing with Vintage Breaks. Afternoon, Tyler. So the shows in New Jersey that I frequented were the Freehold Raceway Mall show. I remember that show very well. You could sit all weekend and sell lots of cards for $1, $2, it ended up being thousands of dollars. The Howell Flea Market show on Route 9 was a big show for me, and I believe that there's potentially a show there today, and or a baseball card store within the flea market itself. Of course, who could forget the Ramada Inn? That is where I met Scott Alpaugh, who is a longtime friend of mine and well-known in the hobby. And I'm sure I'm leaving off many places, such as local hotels, like on Route 35, and big convention centers, kind of like as like Secaucus and such. But the ones that really, I was able to get to locally as a young kid were those. And so I wanted to mention that as part of my first episode history and background on myself. I wanted to get that out there for those New Jerseyites that are listening and can appreciate. So anyway, thanks for joining us today here on our second episode of Trading Card Therapy. We're going to get right into the very first topic, which I'm sure many of you have either heard about and or listened to other podcasts or other folks talk about on social media, and that is Fanatics' big move into the trading card space, specifically grabbing licenses from Major League Baseball and NBA. And they're now confirming that they're going to be making cards. I forgot the exact year, but in a few years from now, they're going to be handling the licenses for Major League Baseball and the Players Association, as well as the NBA and the NBA Players Association. So before we get into that just a little bit further, I'd like to point out, if you want to consume Trading Card Therapy live every week, you can check us out Tuesday at 12:30 Eastern Time on our YouTube channel owned by Just Collect at youtube.com/justcollect. And of course, if you prefer your podcast in the audio format, you can enjoy that on Apple, Spotify, and such, when our good buddy Ken will drop that on Friday mornings. So look for that out there in the podcast universe. Special shout out to friends like Darren Ravel and Ryan and Jason and Mark, and of course the team here at Vintage Breaks and Just Collect. Trading Card Therapy would not be possible without all of the team members here that we work with to make Just Collect and Vintage Breaks tick. So thank you. And without further ado, let's get back to Panini and Topps and Fanatics. And so there's been a lot of talk, a lot of, if you will, shock and awe of what does this mean for you, the collector, you, the investor, if you will. And a lot of folks are hybrid with Fanatics making such a strong play, or a perceived strong play, right? Obviously, time will unfold and we'll see, but it looks as though it's going to be very strong. And so what does that mean, for you folks? And I think that it's a little bit too early to tell. I wanted to give my 2 cents on what I think is going to unfold, and obviously we'll date this and it'll be out there for folks to consume. I know there's been some doom and gloom out there about, Fanatics producing cards and Topps won't produce anything, and Panini's not going to produce anything in the space. And just from my standpoint, I believe that Topps and Panini, at least for the interim, isn't going anywhere because they can produce cards, I believe, till 2026 or so. But I also think that Fanatics is a smart company. They have great people that are running it, and folks who are good at business recognize the value of a brand. And so my dad used to say motherhood and apple pie and tops growing up. And so I'm wondering if that's going to play true for Fanatics. And of course, on the NBA side, does Fanatics feel as though that they need the Panini brand to run something like a National Treasures? But remember, Fanatics isn't necessarily an expert in the space, but they're going to want to be the best in the space. So the truth will certainly lie somewhere in between. But I believe that we're going to see the Topps brand and the Panini brand continued in some capacity, unless, of course, sides are unreasonable, and no deal can be had or met, whether it be now or in the future. But I believe that Fanatics wants what's best for, of course, their bottom line, but they also want what's best for the community of users, and they have a lot of them. They have a lot of sports users to the tune of tens of millions. And so all I keep hearing is this doom and gloom of how this is going to be very bad for the industry, very bad for the hobby. And I don't necessarily share that sentiment, but with the asterisk of if Topps and Panini go away, well, then no, I think that if Fanatics just comes out with a Fanatics card brand and they forget about the Topps heritage and the Panini heritage, and it's everything new moving forward, I do think that could work. But I myself, as a pure hobbyist and someone who's been around for quite some time, would love to see the Topps name, continue, as well as it's a valued asset, of the community. And so I think Panini and Topps will both be looked like that by Fanatics. It's just a matter of course, the dollars and cents. But I do think that in terms of great point, Chris Coe, there is lots of opportunity for Fanatics to tie in all the channels to bring a better value for the collector sport fan. And that's collector sport fan can be a fan of digital assets, could be the fan of physical assets, could be the fan of not so typical baseball cards. So there's lots of, crossroads happening. I believe it'll be interesting to see how Fanatics leads that effort or leads those efforts. But I do know one thing, that there's a lot of money being put into this. And of course, people can be wrong. And I hear this expression often in a variety of different, professional circles, as well as, personally, that rising tides lift all boats. And I certainly hope that this is the case with Fanatics. I do believe that they're going to be investing heavily into the space. And now you're going to have potentially the leagues and their players lobbying for the success of those brands within that space. And so I think that before we, have that knee-jerk reaction that many of us do when we have change in our lives, right? Forget about, professionally, right? If you get laid off from a job, or, you're moving states because your significant other got a new job, whatever the case may be, we're always averse to change, but change often brings out the best in people and experiences, and hopefully in business, it's going to bring out the best for products, for variety. And, I can only speak for myself, but Crosby's 6 years old. And I was talking to someone about this earlier this morning. They were asking my opinion about the situation. And I said, hey, in an ideal world, I think that Fanatics will acquire Topps, or just the trading card aspect of Topps. Same thing with Panini. And they'll continue the brand. But then what I would love to do, this is what I added, I would love to see Fanatics come out with their own cards with a really kid-friendly price point, but like with that same type of chase element. That's okay if that's what we're going to, embrace as an industry. I think that change and competition is good for the hobby as long as it's managed correctly. Very well put, Tyler. And that's the same way it is in life. So I'm just thinking that because Fanatics already has such a vested interest in the sports and the sports fan space, that to me, as an owner of justcollect.com, where we buy and sell old baseball cards, right? As an owner or one of the owners of vintagebreaks.com, where we offer both old and more modern breaks available on our YouTube channel 7 days a week. You're always talking about customer acquisition. Customer acquisition is really expensive, no matter what industry you're in, and can, of course, be challenging. And so when I look at it through my lens, or when I look at it through my lens in regards to Fanatics, is, hey, if they're able to knock down a lot of trees and a lot of friction between Just Collect and Vintage Breaks offerings and the collecting world, that, let's just say there's 90 million people that are on Fanatics as users, but only 9 million of those people like collectibles, well, then it sounds like we have about, well, I don't know, 80 million potential customers left where we don't have to run different ads and try to figure out where they are on the internet. We know they're in the Fanatics ecosystem. And so I believe, or I'm hoping, fingers crossed, right, that long term, this will be absolutely a situation of rising tides lifting all boats. But there's still a lot of dust to be settled. Make no mistake about it. Some of this stuff was happening behind the scenes. There's still probably a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. So time will tell about how it plays out. I'm super pumped to see the investment coming into the hobby that I love, that I've grown to make a living in, both with Just Collect and Vintage Breaks, the two sponsors of Trading Card Therapy. And of course, I'd be remiss if I did not mention Sports Collectors Daily, really good friend of mine, Rich Miller. If you're looking for sports, daily hobby news, right? And you only got 2 minutes from that coffee break from work, or you can duck away from your significant other and say you got to go to the bathroom for a few minutes. And instead of just texting me, hey, what's going on in the hobby? I would check out sportscollectorsdaily.com. Fresh news stories every day, a lot of action. I've known Rich for about 20 years or so. Getting back to center, I did want to take a moment to take one of the comments from our audience, and our very own Chris Coe is saying that by passing the savings back to the ecosystem, it would be amazing. Exactly. Lots of inefficiencies in the current collecting industry, from distribution, etc. So that's what I was going to close with, Chris. Hey, what's up, Jim? Thanks for joining us from Karma Records. Shout out for your music needs. Check them out. Look at these free sponsors all over the place. One day we'll be big enough, we'll be having paid sponsors. But anyway, really appreciate each and every one of you for joining us here on Trading Card Therapy. It is only episode 2, but I feel like I know many of you very well and sincerely appreciate the support. But I did want to close with this. And obviously, this is my only hot take on the distribution and the whole fallout of what's going to happen with Fanatics in the future. So, as much as I do acquire product sometimes from distributors, and I have no emotional feeling towards them one way or the other, I think that the distributors, the middlemen of the world in the modern wax, are going to see lots of changes. And the reason why I targeted them first is because, as Chris mentioned, it's inefficient. Why does Fanatics, Topps or Panini, if they're already shipping product, why do they need to ship it twice? It's almost like you're saying, wait a minute, we're not able to manage our inventory, so let's give it to another company to manage. It'll sit in their holding cell. Let them capitalize on these big secondary run-ups, which, by the way, has been happening now for years, and just make additional money and padding the accounts of, folks like GTS, folks, let's say, like Peach State or Southern Hobby. And by the way, those folks are all wonderful organizations, but we're just talking about business efficiency. I'm just not sure why Fanatics is going to say, why do we need that supplier to hold our product and disseminate it from there? When I was just listening to a Michael Rubin podcast recently, the founder of Fanatics, Sam, he's very into direct to consumer in terms of vertical. So you might say he's producing the best product that he can for the money. And instead of having 1 or 2 or 3 different sets of hands in between, it's going right to the end user. And you can buy that from his website, fanatics.com. And so I do believe that the days of being able to go and scalp, modern stuff from, retail outlets is going to change, because that's not necessarily what's in the best interest of the hobby, or frankly, what's in the best interest of a company like Fanatics. So I think a company like Fanatics is going to be able to potentially take out that middleman cost. Of course, they're going to want to make as much money as they can, but they're also going to want to keep people in their ecosystem. And so I believe they're going to be able to deliver value. They're going to be able to deliver value several different ways. But first and foremost, they're going to be able to take that savings, and any good company that's going to prosper for the long haul, and it looks like that they're doing a very good job of that. It seems as though that is ripe for change. And then in terms of Fanatics product itself, you could have products that are going to be put out. They're going to be kid friendly, that could be out in, the Amazons and the Walmarts, in the Targets of the world, where kids are going to be able to go and buy with their parents. And you know what? Maybe there's not going to be a $30,000 card possible. Well, there'll be a $30 card possible, and packs are going to cost 99 cents again, because Fanatics is going to know that these kids are sports fans now. They may like to buy some t-shirts and such with their mom's help, but if we can get them in that ecosystem, they're also going to love cards. They're going to love them forever. And I think that was a big boat missed by the card companies in recent years. And so there's no reason that the card manufacturers are not working with Amazon, Target, Walmart, etc., to deal with them directly, take all of those savings and deliver better value, kid-friendly products, so on and so forth. And last part of it is, I do think that Fanatics is going to support card shops, the local card store, the LCSs, as we like to use for short in this industry. But I would say that this is my message to the local card stores. If you can continue to develop, revenue streams that don't depend on new product coming out. So, for example, at Vintage Breaks, we handle set breaks that have to do with vintage cards from, let's say, the 1950s or 60s, or even the 70s, sometimes the 80s. But there's hit randoms, which, of course, if you're a fan of Vintage Breaks, you've seen a lot over the last several years. But there's a lot of different things that the local card shops, for example, if they weren't given such a softball, Sam, to, let's say, get this product delivered to them for $120 that they're selling for $450, and all of a sudden now they have to develop their own products, I think it's going to be better for everyone in the long run. But I think we are going to be bracing for change. And I think that if Fanatics wanted, they could have card shop specific hobby releases only. So there's lots of opportunity. We're going to see where, as time unfolds, where the chips fall. But that is our discussion on the Panini, Topps, and Fanatics situation at the moment. We're going to be talking about more of that in the future. I wanted to cover a few other things today in just our second episode ever of Trading Card Therapy. So I bid in our good friends at Heritage Auctions, big auction that they had this weekend. I will not reveal yet, but maybe in the future. I bid on one of the most expensive items I've ever bid on. I did not win it, but it was to the tune of several $100,000. And I'm able to still live at home, as we did not win. But all kidding aside, I wanted to talk about my experience in the auction. It was great. They had a 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday was, I believe, their platinum night. Sunday was still some great items as well. But I wanted to talk about, I believe I won potentially one item in the auction, but I wanted to talk to you about my experience and what had happened and what it caused me to do. And I think this would be a good piece of advice for those out there who are collecting cards, autographs, photographs, whatever the case may be. And so in terms of the auction itself, it was fantastic. And I very much wanted two, but I really had my heart set on one particular Michael Jordan original photograph from his rookie season of 1984, where he was dunking with this just unbelievable scowl on his face at his first appearance ever at Madison Square Garden, and it sold for $6,500. And of course, I'm thinking, oh, this thing's probably worth $10,000, but I put in my bid of $5,000 and change, and it just wasn't meant to be. But what I took from that, and bidding on some other Michael Jordan photos, which I did not come out victorious on, was, hey, let me see what's out there. I set up next to my really good friend Ryan Friedman from Auction Report at this past year's National, as I do every National. And next year we'll be in Atlantic City for those that are interested, 2022. Hope you can join us. So Ryan had some great Michael Jordan photos at the National. I almost pulled the trigger on one. I waited a few days, gone. Darren Bell tweeted about it, and then lo and behold, the photo was sold. So I went on eBay after the Heritage auction, and I've been looking at some Michael Jordan photographs over the last few days. Once again, these are unsigned vintage photographs, type 1s for those of you that are unfamiliar with the type of collecting of photographs that I do. There's different types, meaning that's the generation. Was it first to come off the negative, Was it printed off the negative 20 years later? That's what we mean by type. You can check out all those details at psacard.com. So in regards to Michael Jordan original photography, I see the market heating up. I have some photographs in my collection, but I really felt as though like I missed out and I wanted to buy a great photo. And so this is why I'm bringing it up today. You can take the information that you gain and the knowledge that you're able to learn and acquire from bidding in auctions. If you're really bidding with real dollars and you're willing to stand behind your bid and pay for stuff, you can get a sense for where the market's moving on things. And so fast forward, and I don't have the photo here, but when I do, I'll post it to social on Trading Card Therapy and a variety of other platforms owned by Vintage Breaks and Just Collect. And by the way, special shout out to my friend Jason from Motia, also a sponsor of the show. So in regards, and MJ made me think of him, in regards to MJ, there's just not enough good photographs that are really, kind of grabbing me and saying, hey, this is something special. And so that's why I really wanted that photograph from his rookie season, but I felt like there was a big premium because it was from his rookie season and also it being from his first appearance in MSG. So I found an amazing photo of just a portrait of Jordan's face in about the 1989 to 1990 time period. And what's so interesting is I've not seen very many Jordan portrait photos whatsoever. And so it was at fixed price on eBay for, I think, $1,000. I made an offer of $7.25 with shipping at $7.50. I thought that would be reasonable. I didn't know if they would counter or not or just deny. And ended up accepting the offer. So I'll be showing off that newly acquired Michael Jordan original photograph portrait for my collection in the coming weeks when it comes in. Just paid for it late yesterday. So when you're bidding in auctions, try to take even small victories in the items that you don't win and realize that you're going to potentially be at the forefront of understanding the market trends, even that tiny little niche. So for me, it's the Michael Jordan photographs. And obviously more macro, I'm very into vintage cards, both professionally and personally, as you all know. And if you haven't figured it out yet, yes, I'm a card nerd and I'm proud of it. So for those of you that bid in Heritage or any other auction recently, please drop something in the chat or in the comments about what you've won. It's always fascinating to me what people are collecting out there. Moving on, I did attend a card show this past weekend out in Hofstra. They actually had to cancel the second day of it because of the pending hurricane. I have just one item here that I picked up at the show, actually two items. One of them I already showed off on social media. It's a 1978 O-Pee-Chee hockey box, BBCE wrapped. For those of you who do not know what that means, that's Baseball Card Exchange. Check them out at baseballcardexchange.com on the web. They are the preeminent source for unopened and authentication in the unopened space. So check that out. This is one of my items that I bought out at the convention. Here is another 1970 Topps football cello first series pack. It is the one with about 33 cards in it. As you can see, this person bought it from Mile High Auctions, and I in turn bought it from them. I bought this because 1970 football cellos are great value for the money, as they have nearly 3 times the cards in them as the wax packs do, and the wax packs are extremely pricey. So it made sense to pick that up. Picked up a few other things as well. You could check me out at Leighton_Sheldon on Instagram to check out some of my other pickups from the Hofstra Show. Special shout out to Jimmy and Brian for putting on an amazing convention. So the last two things I wanted to cover for today have to do with cards, because what would we be doing here at Trading Card Therapy if we didn't geek out for a minute? So this is a sign. I didn't forget about it, but let's just say it wasn't at the forefront, the tip of my frontal lobe of my memory. I just bought this card recently out of auction with tremendous eye appeal. I believe it's the very same card. So I don't have that card in yet. But I just got back a reholder, and I believe I bought this card in a collection, and it was mislabeled by PSA, and I sent it in prior to the PSA shutdown on a, I guess, a bulk-ish, I don't remember the dollar amount, service. And with this pop from PSA the other day, I'm like, wait a minute, did I grade this card recently? No, it was a reholder. So I believe I now have 2 of these. I'm going to evaluate it when the other one comes in. This one has tremendous eye appeal for a grade of 1. We're going to talk more about eye appeal on episode 3 of Trading Card Therapy. So tune in next week. I know some of you out there will enjoy that. We've been preaching that here and discussing it amongst the vintage breaks community and the Just Collect community for the last couple of years. So here is my 1922 E121 American Caramel Babe Ruth holding the ball, PSA 1. But check that out. For a PSA 1, you're talking about fairly square corners. Now, for those of you who can't see, there is a little bit of paper loss there in the upper left. But sans that, gorgeous image, great eye appeal. Certainly a keeper, you'd think. However, I bought a very similar card in an auction from REA. You can see the back. There's a little bit of paper loss. Otherwise, fairly clean. Looks like it was in a scrapbook at some point, just based on those glue remnants. But super pumped. Once again, this was already graded a PSA 1. It was just mislabeled by PSA, but it had been a PSA for months, if not longer, because I sent it in as a 1-card reholder and just kind of had forgotten about it. So sometimes it pays off when it takes a long time to get your cards back. And very appreciative of having this 1922 E121 American Caramel Babe Ruth coming back to us here. Hey, what's up, Daniel? Thanks for joining us. Oh, love the Harrington's ice cream. There's a big, really nice example of the Harrington's ice cream Ruth in this weekend's. Check them out. Good buddy of mine, Al Christophilly from Love of the Game Auctions. I already have several bids in their auction. I believe it ends on Saturday. So a little public service announcement for you all. All right. So we're trying to keep this to about 30 minutes. And even though we started just a couple minutes behind, we are generally going to start Trading Card Therapy, the live version of our podcast, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesday afternoons. So if you can, take your lunch break with me. I'll be taking my lunch break just after this. But it'd be awesome if you can join us for that. Or take a break from just doing work at your job. I won't tell if you don't. But thanks for joining the doctor for today's episode of Trading Card Therapy. We have one more topic to cover, and that is buying collections, because it's a personal passion of mine. I enjoy it thoroughly. It's also the lifeline, the blood line that we need here at Just Collect to make us tick. And so I wanted to offer some super high level advice in regards to buying baseball cards, because it's one thing, and I'm going to show these cards off. You're going to, folks, if you like 1950s cards, then you should not only consume our audio version of the Trading Card Therapy podcast, but check out our live version of Trading Card Therapy podcast, because that's where you're going to see some treasures what I'm about to show off. So here's the deal. You might say, why is this knucklehead about to share with folks out there who he doesn't even know about how to buy more vintage cards in the same way that he's doing, especially because he does this for a living? Well, here's the deal. I know no matter what, I won't be able to buy all the baseball cards in the world. I'd like to, believe me. My wife knows it. So does Crosby. However, I also know it's not possible. And so I figured that the more I can arm folks who are either casual, intermediary, or more serious collectors, investors, I'm waiting for the call from Chris Coe. I'm begging to get another text from Andy Brentano. I'm hoping to get an email from Daniel Lynch that says, Leighton, I think I stumbled across the mother lode of such and such. And you know what? I'd like to be involved with it, but can you help me assess it? Could you maybe help me purchase it? Or just help me, give me some general advice, and I'll think about what to do at the end. I'd love to help. I like the action, and I want to see more treasure uncovered out there in the hobby. As you know, I like to fancy myself a baseball card treasure hunter, but I'm still not going to be able to find all the treasures out there. So the best way to do that is in your circle of people. So I don't mean you got to go out and get a website, chrisco.com or daniellynch.com, whatever the case may be. But go out there and establish that you are a passionate collector of baseball cards, that you're knowledgeable about it. And what does that mean? Put up a business card at the ice cream shop at your town. When you go to get gas, tell your gas station guy you just bought a cool card. And I know some of this stuff might seem a little bit hokey, but I talk about baseball cards nonstop. And so aside from the organic content that we provide on our website for free at justcollect.com, that helps people with simple things like how do you hold your baseball cards? How do you take care of them? How do you ship them if you want to send them in for appraisal to a company like ours? All that great stuff. Here's the thing. No matter how much great information we give away at Just Collect and the dozens of great auction houses that are out there, like Heritage and like our friends from REA and all the other countless others that are out there, there's still going to be someone who doesn't know what they have. And so if you can help them, Darren Novella sent countless people my way because they truly didn't understand what they had. We don't get to buy every collection, but we help as many as we can. And we feel like good karma will come back to us. And so if there's a time and place for folks to, whether it be sell, trade, get more information, they know that they can come to the doctor. That is yours truly, Leighton Sheldon. So we appreciate you joining us today on Trading Card Therapy. And the last thing is you could take out very cheap classified ads once a month in your town to let people know that you're looking for old baseball cards. So many different ways to get involved in your community. So I wanted to close with this collection of cards. We'll talk about the details on how I evaluated it next week on the third episode of Trading Card Therapy, because I thought you'd find that all information, I thought you'd find all that information interesting and potentially useful for those who are aspiring to go out and value deals and value collections. And so without further ado, this is the 1950s collection with approximately just over 600 cards from the mid-1950s, heavy dosage of 1955 and 1956 Topps baseball. Check them out, folks. That's right. Not one, not two, not three, but 4 1955 Topps Jackie Robinsons in this collection. By the way, second installment of this collection. So it's another reason why I talked about making friends and providing value. We had a successful first transaction. We didn't push and say you have to send in everything at once. He said, I'd like to kind of get my feet wet. We said, get it wet, 1 foot at a time if you'd like. Well, he jumped in the pool big time, the deep end with this batch. Check out now a couple of Teddy Ballgame, Ted Williams, 55 Topps. We're now moving into 1956. Once again, these are just the highlights. There's hundreds of other cards in the collection. So here is a couple second-year Roberto Clemente cards. And then look at that. Jackie makes another appearance. 2 more 56 Topps Jackies. Several 1950s. Wow, there's 3 56 Teddies. And I'm just going to fan these up here because we don't want to be rude to Al Kaline, Ernie Banks, a Luis Aparicio rookie. So, folks, if you're listening to this on audio, you can tune in and see all this, all these treasures we're showing off on a weekly basis. 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Trading Card Therapy. I'm your host. Thanks to our sponsors, Just Collect, Vintage Breaks, Otia Sports. Special shout out to my friend Mark Jacob and his team from Bleecker Trading. I believe they're having another trade night in New York City. Check them out on Instagram. From yours truly, the Doctor. Until next week, signing off.